Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to Doctor Who Flux slash Series 13. It is Chapter 4, The Village of the Angels, and we're going to jump straight into it. Naturally, beware of spoilers, we're in the middle of this serialization, and ooh boy, we got an interesting episode waiting for us, so let's go. Okay, so the Weeping Angels are back, and I have to say, the way in which they are brought back is pretty good. I enjoyed this episode. I definitely enjoyed it more than last week's episode. I would say that this is probably my second favorite so far. The Centauran episode is still number one currently, but this was a strong episode. So first of all, the Weeping Angels are a big Doctor Who monster in this episode, and I have to say, I never really like the way they explored or used the Weeping Angels, apart from like the very first episode they were in, like in Blink. In Blink, they were really cool and creepy, and you didn't really like understand how all of them worked, and I sort of liked how they were very mysterious. So that was really cool in Blink. And ever since then, whenever they turned up again, I don't know, I felt like they weren't utilized very well. So that was a bit of a problem for me, which is all the better in this episode, because in this episode where they come back, they are proper creepy and mysterious again. The ways in which they are used, I think, are brilliant. Like, we don't see them like properly move like we did in that one episode, like, but it's like really this flash 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 movement that just works so well for the Weeping Angels, and it's a proper creepy. Like, we get a couple of flashes when people get like zapped into the past, and it's proper creepy. Like, you're just waiting for that moment when characters like blink or just like turn away for a second, and the Weeping Angel is right there. It works so well throughout the episode, and I'm so glad that they managed to make the Weeping Angels like really cool, mysterious, and creepy again. So that worked really well, and I think this whole concept that we have with the sort of home invasion that we see in this episode works really well, because you're not really aware of where the angels are. How could they get in? You just hear from the outside, like they're rattling on the windows and everything, and then one of them rings the doorbell, which is kind of funny. And you're just waiting for them to somehow come in, and it just works really, really well, I think. So I'm so glad that they were able to bring the Weeping Angels back and make them creepy again. And we get, I think, an interesting like character within the Weeping Angels themselves, because there is like a rogue Weeping Angel, which is such a cool concept, I think. Just like, because up until this point, the Weeping Angels were always like like a collective species. They don't really act as individuals. They are always like in groups or pairs, and it's not like one Weeping Angel has a name or something like that. They're also kind of similar to like the Cybermen Daleks, as in that they are or act as a collective. So it's all the more interesting to now see that there is actually a rogue Weeping Angel, because they know stuff they're not supposed to know, or that the other Weeping Angels don't want other people to know about. So it's cool that we, towards the end of the episode, we kind of get this little twist, you could say, where it turns out, that one Weeping Angel that lives inside, is her name Claire? I'm so sorry, I'm so bad with names. It lives inside the woman. Isn't evil per se, but more like, okay, no, I'm trying to hide from all the other Weeping Angels who are trying to get to me. So I thought that was really, really cool, and something that we have never seen before like this. So that was really, really good, I thought. They play around a lot with like also the rules of how the Weeping Angels can appear, like we saw at the end of last week's episode with like appearing from Yaz's phone, like the image of an angel can become an angel. They play around with that a lot, and I mostly like how they work this in. Like, we see it with the phone, and it becomes difficult when they like try to observe the angels through like the security camera, which works because you can observe them, but at the same time it's dangerous because it is an image of an angel that you're observing. So that image could become in and of itself an angel, which is scary, and I love it. I just love it. The one thing that I thought was kind of silly is was the drawing of the angel. Which in and of itself worked, I think, because I thought, oh no, there's now a drawing or something like that of an angel, which is probably going to pop back into existence. But like the thing is, the Doctor, she rips the paper and throws it into the fireplace, and I thought, okay, so that's done. Or I was like, well, maybe burn it right away just to be sure. But then the pieces of paper just like start to reassemble themselves. How? How is the angel able to do that? That was kind of weird, even though it was kind of cool to then see the Weeping Angel like sort of blink into existence, but not really. And then they try to burn it, but it doesn't really work. Weeping Angel on fire, that was kind of cool. But that felt kind of silly, or it didn't really make sense to me to be like, okay, why is the paper able to reassemble itself? They should have just have the drawing there. The Doctor didn't really see it or notice it like from the graph thingy, and then the Weeping Angel comes in, and then the Doctor's like, oh no, it rips the paper and burns it, and that's how the Weeping Angel disappeared. Maybe that's how they should have done it. But we have that one really cool idea of a Weeping Angel, I think, that because the woman has premonitions in her mind, and she has like this premonition of an angel. She has an image of an angel inside her mind that she can see. And we all know the image of an angel can become an angel. And because it's in her brain, in her mind, it becomes real. And that is so cool, just like as a concept. It's super interesting, it's super fascinating. It's blimmin' terrifying if you think about it. Because, you know, if Weeping Angels were, you know, real in our world, you would be like, oh, we're so screwed. Because you would be like, oh, whenever you think of an angel, you have the image of an angel inside your head, it could immediately just like jump into existence. And that's just, I don't want that. That is a terrifying concept, and I hope that they keep this maybe for like future appearances for the angels, that maybe there's like a, I don't know, like mass reaction, mass panic or something, and a bunch of people suddenly get like visions or imaginations of angels inside their heads, and that's how they are able to like then infiltrate the planet or whatever, because people start thinking about images of angels, and that's just how bam, 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 we get a bunch of angels, because that would work so well, and I thought that was really, really cool. And at the end of the episode, where we see all of the angels like sort of coming in, we're thinking, oh, they're out to get the rogue angel, and they're in the caverns and trying to run away. And I just love how they framed, like, you know, like the staring contest scenes with the angels, how they try to work together. But there's still occasionally like terrifying moments where they like just have to blink or look away, and the angels are immediately there. Just so cool. And then they manage to like make their way out of the caverns, or Doctor manages to make her way out, because suddenly the angels are not following her anymore. And she's like, okay, weird, let's see what all that's about. She comes out, and there's just like a bunch of angels, like hundreds and hundreds of angels. And then the rogue angel's like, okay, they're no longer coming for me, they're coming for you. And it's all about the division. And I just sat there for like the last 2 minutes. I was like, what's happening? Because then like the angels, you're being recalled by the vision, and then they touch her, and just like the Doctor, the image of the Doctor turning into an angel, because I'm assuming that's what's happening. I have no idea how she's gonna get out of that one, but that ending, best cliffhanger so far. That ending was so good. It really, especially like in the serialization, the ending to these episodes really kind of remind me of like classic Who, where they sort of bring in like a last note cliffhanger, like the last 2 minutes, everything seems to be going relatively okay, and then like the last minute they're like, oh no, everything's going down. And this is kind of what this reminds me of, and I love it. And it's just like a terrifying image to see the Doctor being turned into an angel as she's being recalled by the division. Because, I mean, you see your hero being transformed into an angel, and you're wondering, how are they able to do that? Is that really how weeping angels are made? Is this just like a temporary thing they're doing? But just like the image of the Doctor as an angel, I'm calling it's going to be so iconic, and it's such a good cliffhanger for the ending of this episode. And I think it makes sense for the angels to like work for the division, because we've seen other species work for the division, like the Jadoon in the very first appearance when we heard about the division, and we've seen like in the previous episode where we saw the Doctor working together with Carbonista and someone else, that the division, even though the Time Lords seem to be like sort of the leaders or something of the division, that they recruit other species to help them work with whatever it is they're actually doing. And at this point, I'm thinking that the division is going to be like the big, I don't know, like the big important element that brings it all together at the end of Flux, in episode 6, that we see why have they recruited other people, what the Doctor used to do when she worked for them. I mean, it's also been hinted at that the Flux was caused by someone, maybe the division had something to do with it. But I'm really getting the sense of, okay, no, the division is going to play like a really, really important role as to how this whole thing is going to resolve itself. And now that we see what kind of power they have, that they even, kind of control, quote unquote, the Weeping Angels, it's going to be interesting to see going forward what they do with that and how the Doctor's going to get out of that one. Okay, so yeah, the Weeping Angels, I think, work wonderfully in this episode. So let's talk about some of the other characters. The Doctor, again, Jodie Whittaker seems to work best as the Doctor when she's away from her regular companions. It's so weird. This is something I already talked about back in the Jadoon episode, the Sontaran episode, where I thought Doctor balanced up really well with like the guest characters, when she's apart from like her regular companions. And this is again exactly what happens in this episode. I don't know what it is. If just like the way her Doctor is written works better with like non-regular companions, or if like all of the actors are good, but maybe just the chemistry doesn't work. I don't know what it is, but like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor works really, really well when she's like sort of on her own and put into like impossible situations, or situations where she just has to do stuff on her own, bounce off ideas with people she doesn't usually interact with. I don't know why, but it works really, really well for her Doctor. We can see this again very well, I think, in this episode. Also because, again, the guest characters are really cool, like with... I hope her name is Clyde, I'm not misremembering that, with like the angel lady, who has the angel inside her mind, who was zapped back into the 60s, and Jericho with like the old Professor Doctor guy, who was really, really fun, by the way. I thought he was really interesting, kind of a bit, not really like over the top, but sort of like Doctor-ish elements, that he like really wants to know what's going on. He's always like up on all the science. I thought it was really cool. And I like, because I feared when the episode started he was going to be kind of like an asshole, and he was going to be mean and then get killed by the angels, but they didn't do that. I like that they didn't do that. And I think the teaser for next week's episode, he's in that one, I think. I mean, he is zapped back into the past to like meet with Yaz and Dan. So I'm assuming that maybe we haven't seen the last of him yet. At least I hope so, that he's maybe going to stick around for one more episode, because I think he was really interesting. There was some hints at with like his past in regards to like the war, what he did during the war. I thought was kind of interesting. Maybe he can help with like figuring out the science and stuff. So I thought he was fun. The actor did a really good job with him, and I'm pretty sure we're not yet completely done with like the angel lady, with like Claire, because there has to be more with her, right? Like, we already saw her in episode 1, when she was in the present time. She was like, oh, Doctor, it's you, but you haven't met me yet. And then the angel got her and she got zapped into the past, which I'm assuming is like the 60s. So I'm not sure yet if this is like the first meeting of the Doctor and Claire for both. I mean, apparently not really, because the Doctor at this point already knows her. Like, she has seen her. And I'm not sure if Claire has seen her at this point in time when the episode is set. I don't think so. Like, I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, but I'm thinking that maybe there's gonna be a bit more there. How this all sort of like works together. I mean, there are only like some details that are missing here. I I wouldn't be too angry if they didn't address it again, but I would like to see the Angel Lady again, because I think it's kind of interesting to see how her story is told in like a non-linear way. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, I like when Doctor Who, or like in general when stories do that, when they tell someone's story from like a non-linear viewpoint. I think with the Angel Lady this works especially well. Also, if you think about it, the Doctor is like really adamant, insistent about helping her. She's like, okay, there's this angel inside your brain. I really want this angel to get out. If she's still going to like try and do that to get the angel out of there, and I'm just thinking that like some people we've seen in this episode are maybe going to reappear like next week or maybe in episode 6. Because I think there may be some little details here and there that we could still figure out, but overall, I really like the guest characters in this episode. Okay, so let's talk about what happens to Yas and Dan. I'm kind of worried about Yas and Dan, because I feel like, what are they actually here for? Like, this was already sort of a problem last week's episode, because we didn't really need them. We didn't really learn much about them. I'm kind of upset that Dan seems to have forgotten about like Di, like his quasi girlfriend, who was like in one of the Skeletor passenger thingies. And I was really hoping that he was, at least for like a couple of minutes in like the beginning of this episode, was going to be like, oh no, what happened to her? Oh, I don't know how to feel about this, and we have to save her, but okay, no, we have other stuff to deal with. I was kind of hoping to see that from Dan, where he's like faced for the first time with, the terrors of time travel, and now he has to deal with it. And we don't get that in this episode. I hope this comes back in the later episode, because if not, kind of a missed opportunity. Also, like, what about Di? Like, is she dead? What happened? I don't know. And I want Dan to care about that. So Yas and Dan, they I kind of like the dynamic they've got going on here. That Yas immediately kind of like takes on like this authority figure and even rehashes like the old "it's a very flat team structure" line. I like that. She immediately goes kind of back into like police officer mode as they interact with like the old couple. By the way, I like that for once the police boxes actually function as police box, because they are in the 60s. I like that, it was cute. And immediately like go out and try to find this girl. And I like it how they're just like very practically going out, doing stuff. Again, I kind of enjoy how low-key Dan is about everything. He's just like, well, I guess that's happening. Okay. And I don't know, in a way I enjoy that he's like just like low-key reacting, or not at all reacting to anything that's happening. He's just kind of taking it in stride. I'm kind of enjoying that. And they get zapped into the past, into the 60s, into the basically the past version of this village, where just like everyone's gone except for that little girl they're trying to find. And naturally it's because the angels all zapped and killed them. And then we get this really cool visual of like just the village just like stopping, and then there's just like space beyond that. It's just like stars and galaxies and planets, and it looked really, really cool. It was a really cool visual. Like what Yas and Dan are doing in this episode is, I feel like it's kind of like really removed from like the rest of the episode. I feel like if you cut a lot of that stuff out, not a whole lot would change. It's just kind of like about that little girl, and then she meets like her older version in the 60s, the present day, in the 60s. And like the one major thing that seems to happen now is that they are stuck there. Because we see like in the teaser for next week's episode, Dan is like, oh, we've been here for 3 years or something like that. So I'm assuming that they are stuck there. It's like 1901 or something, like early 20th century. And with the Doctor now being turned into an angel, and also Professor like Jericho being zapped into the past, who's also stuck there now, I'm assuming, they're there now for a while. Like we don't even, like in the teaser for next week's episode, we don't even see the Doctor. We just get a hint at, Dan and Yas apparently having to stay where they are for a while. So I'm hoping that maybe we get to focus, like really get to focus on Yas and Dan's a part of the story, like what they do in the village now that the Doctor is apparently gone or dead, like they don't know. So I'm hoping that we'll really get to see more of their story in next week's episode, because I really want them to do more stuff. Like I mentioned in the previous review, I don't know if it's good or bad that Jodie Whittaker's Doctor works best when she's apart from her regular companions. Like, I don't know how to feel about it. Like, I love the companions. I like Dan. He's a great new addition. But like with him and also with Yas, I want them to do like more stuff. And Yas works really well if she takes on like this commanding officer kind of position like she does in this episode. It works really, really well, and I want to see more of that, like them taking charge and doing their own thing. I like it, but make it play more of a role in like the overall plot. That's kind of what I want to see more. So I'm kind of hoping and assuming that we get to see that kind of stuff in next week's episode, which is maybe it's gonna be like a Dr. Light episode. That would be kind of interesting, that we just like sort of follow the companions, what's going on with them. We also seem to get a callback to like the Liverpool tunnels, which have only like been hinted at throughout some of the episodes. Maybe we finally get to see what's going on with that. So I'm hoping that Yas and Dan in next week's episode are really going to be like maybe the leads for the next story. We get to see how they've dealt with living in the past for 3 years, apparently, what's going to happen. So I'm totally on board with like Dan and Yas as a companion duo. I just want more from them. Okay, and as a last thing, because that also happens in the episode, is like Belle and Vinda. And I'm still kind of wondering what Vinda and Belle are doing, how they are important to the story, because I would have been fine like with the end of last week's episode with Belle being like, okay, we know who she is, she's looking for Vinda and Vinda is now looking for her, cool. But like, what else are you going to do with them? Like, I'm hoping, or I'm assuming Vinda is going to be important, or like Belle's going to be important for a later part in the story, because so far I don't really see why they're here, especially like with Vinda. I like him, the actor is cool, and the character has potential to be interesting. But so far he doesn't really have like a huge influence on the plot. Like, there is this teaser for the next episode, the big important serpent snake guy, like the guy he used to work for, is coming back. Which I had actually hoped for, that we maybe get to see him again, because I felt like he seems to be someone important. So I hope that maybe it's gonna tie into like Vinda's gonna meet maybe big serpent guy again, and it's all gonna sort of come together. I'm just still waiting for like Vinda's and also Belle's storyline to reach that level of, okay, I understand why this is here, and I understand why this is important to the story. Yeah, and like the teaser for next week's episode, it's really interesting. We've got a bunch of characters coming. Like, I think Professor Jericho is staying around from what I saw. Like I said, big serpent, important serpent snake boss guy is coming back, which promises to be interesting because he seems to be like a really super influential and important character. So I'm wondering like what kind of impact he actually could have on like the story. We also saw the return of another character. Is it Kate? It's been a while since she's been there. Is it Kate Stewart? I think we last saw him Peter Capaldi's time, right? Like, the lady who works for you, the boss lady from Unit. And I'm so bad with names. I'm so sorry, because I actually like her. She's a cool badass lady. So I'm looking forward to seeing her back. She seems to interact with big serpent boss guy. Maybe. I mean, especially if they are going for like a Doctor Light episode next week, it would make sense to bring in someone important like Kate, focus a bit more on like some of the other side characters. Maybe we're also going to see some like other characters we've seen work with Unit. Maybe they are going to make it like a reappearance, maybe. But then again, I'm also kind of worrying that we've got so many characters at this point, and I'm hoping that it's all gonna sort of come together, because next week is like episode 5. There are only 6 episodes. I'm hopeful, but I'm also kind of worrying about that there are so many like characters and plot points and everything and details that I just hope that they can make at least most of it like work, and that at the end we're gonna sit there and be like, okay, we understand what's actually happening and how it all functions and how it all works together and how, you know, just like all of this makes sense. Okay, so that's it for my review of The Village of the Angels, episode 4 in Doctor Who Flux. Do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the episode. Maybe give a spoiler warning in case you talk about something like really, really big. But yeah, do tell me down in the comments below what you're thinking, because I've seen a lot of people seem to really, really love this episode and saying it's like one of the best in Jodie Whittaker's era or Chibnall's era. While I've seen also some other reviewers saying that they didn't like it that much. So it would be interesting to see what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done already. And I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.